All right, good afternoon, East Hampton ARB. You're live, you're being recorded. We're streaming on 22 and also on YouTube. You may begin.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the August 8th, 2024 Architects Review Board meeting of the Town of East Hampton. We had 12 applications on the agenda today, though 2 have just been administratively removed, so there'll just be 10 applications tonight. At the end of the meeting, we will be having a discussion leading to comments for the ZBA on the redevelopment of a property in the Bluff Road Historical District in Amagansett. Dan Benson needs to leave at 5:15 due to a prior commitment, so we will be sure to get all of her applications done before. And Tara Burke of Lighthouse Land Planning has 3 applications before us tonight, including the first one, and as a courtesy to her, we've agreed to do hers consecutively. So lots of changes to the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of July 25th, 2024? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Done. First item of business, Historic District Fence, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-2-4, 462 Montauk Highway in Amagansett. Frank, this is yours.
Okay, this is an application for a fence in the historic district of Amagansett. This is almost across the street from the train station. We've seen this several times in front of our board for the construction of the house and some modifications to it. There was a fence constructed, so this is a separate application for us. So they're basically 2 6-foot fences running from the side property yard to the house that are seeking approval, as well as a gate there's a double gate on this side, and if you go to the next right on the other side, there's a shorter gate with a single gate leaf. It's pretty straightforward. I don't have any objections to this. It's a very well screened property. This is, the fence, of course, is set back it's not in the front yard, or it's fairly set back. So I have no objections to this.
Any comment from the board?
No.
No objection.
No objection.
Okay.
No, I'm
Good to
okay.
go, Frank?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Approved.
So you can also do the CO and
Right.
receive the CO.
Great idea.
For the same, yes.
Yeah, same property, because it's got the photos up.
It's not on there. We had her submit the paperwork and check today.
Okay, so we'll just
CO at the same
We'll
time.
just reread it again. Okay, so this is an application to move towards the C of O, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-2-4, 462 Montauk Highway in Amagansett.
Okay, well, this seems to conform to what we just approved. So I would like to make a motion to instruct the staff to notify the building department that this application has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms to the ARB approval of the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So be it. Passed. Okay. Tara's second one, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-200-3-41.5. This is an agricultural overlay at 77 Beach Lane in Wainscott. Diane, this is yours.
So this is item 7 on the agenda, right?
Yes. We're now at number 7,
This
yes.
is the 90 property, yes. But this has been before us a few times. It's rather simple. This is the view of the hedges where the generator is now located behind them. And keep going, Bill. And this is the behind the garage where they hope to relocate the generator. And this is a 3+ acre property that is really beautifully maintained. And I have no objection whatsoever to this proposal. Does anybody have any questions?
Where is it located on the site plan? Do we
It's on
know?
Beach Lane.
I mean, where is the generator located on the site plan?
Well, there's a marked up, there you go, this marked up
That's what I
survey.
was curious to see. Thank you.
It's now beyond those hedges that you just saw, that flank the driveway is where it is
Okay.
now. And they want to relocate it to where that red circle is behind the garage.
Okay, so it's in the upper circle and it's going to go to the lower, yeah, okay, got it, okay.
And refresh my memory, the one on the, down below at the bottom of the page that we don't quite see there, that's already been, did we already approve that one? Okay,
Yes.
so that one was a slight move.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit to make it conforming.
Right.
To
Yeah,
set
that's fine.
that.
So all these generators have now been dealt with, right? Yes, okay, good.
Okay,
Looks great.
looks good to me.
Okay,
Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to accept this application as presented.
Second.
Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so passed. Third item is mine. This is for a C of O, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-159-4-17.2. This is 2 Old Hedges Lane in East Hampton. This is an application to provide a C of O for a 1.2-acre property off Cedar Street near the Hands Creek intersection. The applicant has been before us 3 times, starting in 2017, for the construction of a new house. Issues with his builder and COVID and some minor changes to the project along the way have caused this substantial delay of 7 years. Applications have been made for the construction of the original house in 2017, adding solar panels to the rear-facing roofs in 2018, and an open pool pavilion with an outdoor shower and an outdoor storage closet, and as well as deer fencing at 4 feet or 8 feet, given the appropriate location. That was all added in 2024, so that's what we're focusing on today. And I've visited the property 3 times over these many years. All the conditions of our resolutions have been met. I see no reason not to approve this long-running saga.
And this is ag overlay, right?
Ag overlay in the back. The pool house was approved at 500 feet. You just will go back to that. They built it at 296 square feet. It's just an open structure. And if you look to the left, the outdoor shower and the storage closet are on the back of the garage. It's all nicely done. And
It's nice that they didn't build it as big as they could have.
Exactly.
That's nice, yeah.
any comments or? Okay, good.
No.
Okay, so
Looks great.
I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department that this application has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms to ARB approval of the resolutions dated over the past 10 years, and that the certificate of occupancy can be issued. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So be passed. Okay. Now back to the original schedule. Tara, thank you. Okay.
Good summer.
Item number 2, fences, walls, gates, and berms. This is Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-59-2-12.1, 91 Squaw Road in East Hampton. Kathy, this is yours.
Okay, is the applicant here?
Please come up to
Oh,
the
I see,
podium.
there we are, okay. Great. Hi, how are you? Good, thanks.
So you're Andrew Sains, right? Okay, good.
Right. Okay, so this is an application for a couple of gates on this property. We looked at this about a month ago. You could just scroll through the photos, I guess, Rick, and the board asked the applicant and the architect who was with him at the time to go back and take another pass at the gates. They have a special condition where they need 6-foot gates in areas that we normally would not permit 6-foot gates, but maybe you could just go to the recent submission, because I just have a couple of questions about it. Okay, could you enlarge that a little bit, please? And maybe a touch more, because what I'm having trouble seeing, and it may just be that I'm not facile at reading this, but I'm trying to see, I think I understand which are the voids here and which are the posts, but it doesn't give me the measurement of the vertical portions of this gate on the bottom. It doesn't say.
2 inches.
Okay, so it's 1 3/4 inch gap and a 2-inch. Why can't I figure that out? Am I missing that here somewhere?
On the bottom. So each
2-inch vertical, there we go. Okay, yep, there we go. Okay, great. So it isn't quite 50%. It's a little less than that. But I think this is an improvement over last time. And is it yours? There were two proposed wood gate one, and then there's a second one. Were you proposing a different gate, or are these just two different gates for us to choose from?
Well, they're two different gates.
Right.
But if you preferred one
I think it'd be nice to have one.
for my wife, but I could.
Well, I'll let you deal with that.
Thanks.
But I like the first one. I think that looks nice. I think it affords the transparency that we were looking for, and I think it's also a little lower. The other one seemed to be higher. The second gate. This one.
They're the same height.
Yeah. Yeah. This one shows the. Oh no, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm getting this.
The one on the left just looks sort of visually less imposing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more attractive. It looks nicer.
Backing up a bit, because I recall this application there were 2 or 3 gates.
There were 3 gates.
Three
yes.
gates. So the previous 2 were approved by the board, or?
No, we asked them to come back with a different design.
Well, she had the posts going up higher than 6 feet, and she made the actual gate 6 feet, and you needed a few inches, so
Right.
she had to make the gates smaller.
Right.
Okay.
And that was even the one, we didn't even approve the one next to that was touching the house.
Right. Well,
Correct. I
yeah.
think was
was
that as a right
that
gate?
was the
Yeah.
that one I think we.
So
it's just these 2, I think.
there are 2 gates, and they would be the same gate in 2 locations, or not?
We were intending to do two different gates, but I'm perfectly fine to say that we could do whichever one you prefer.
Okay.
Is the proposed wood gate number 2, is that the one that's on the road far from the house?
Yes.
Yes.
And the other one is a bit more
Is the one,
close
yeah,
to the house.
that you would see from the road front, but they're both, it's a corner lot, so they're both along the road. Yeah, it's got sort of 2 front yards, so I think the more attractive one would look nice. Well, I find the gate one more attractive, maybe others feel differently, but.
And remind me why we're thinking of a 6-foot gate here?
They have a special needs person, yes, and they need access,
And horizontal slats were not an option.
Well, the property,
Right.
and it's a relatively, it's not a huge property, but it's out of sight, he's.
Okay, got it.
it's nervous making, yeah. So, and it's very nice that the front yard still looks like a yard. It still looks like East Hampton. There's there's grass. It's not all walled in. If you can just go to the very first picture.
Is this where one of the gates is going to go?
That's the front view of the house. And the one gate is just off to the left of the building there. Can you just scroll through that's right. Thank you.
Or maybe also bring up the survey.
Yeah.
So that's the gate that's as of right.
Right. And this is the gate. Yep. That's in the back there. And this is the gate that's to the left of the house. You'll see it
Sort of around the corner from the front.
right. And then keep scrolling through. Isn't there another picture? Yeah. And that's the one that's to the left of the house. Sorry, I misidentified the other one. This is the one that when we were looking at the front of the house, there was a big bush to the left, and then this is just off to the left of that. And one of the gates would be here, and the other would be along Squaw Road.
And it butts up to deer fencing?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Anything you'd like to add, sir?
No, I think I like them both if you prefer one.
Just for consistency.
yeah, I think the one, I would like to recommend gate number 1.
You
Feel like I'm on a game show. Or number 1.
I have no problem with either, but if the consensus is to go with number 1, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Frank?
Contestant number 1 is fine for me. I agree with Chris. I'd actually, yes, I prefer the one on the left for both gates.
Me too. Okay.
Okay, great. Then I'd like to make a motion that we accept proposed Woodgate number 1 for the Sames application.
Okay.
For 2 locations.
For 2 locations, yes, thank you.
Okay. Second,
I'll second that.
Chris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Passed. Thank you very much.
great, thank you. Good luck with it. Okay.
Still under fences, walls, gates, and berms. This is Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-172-2-27. This is 66 Old Montauk Highway in Amagansett. Diane, this is yours.
Yes. All right, well, that's what it looks like today. This applicant was before us a month ago or maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. And Frank had some very, very definitive
Comment.
feelings about this. And so they seem to have satisfied all of the questionable situations. They have submitted revised drawings, removing the returns on the driveway and pedestrian gates. They have plotted the dimensioned setback markers on the survey from the edge of the pavement to the property line and the driveway gate, which meet and exceed the 20-foot setbacks. And they have submitted original copies of the updated surveys. So it seems to me that what they are planning to do is, looks fine.
Can we see the renderings or the drawings?
Sure.
Right, so we took out the
Return, right,
returns.
yeah. This was a,
And does that mean that
Sliding
without
gate.
those returns, that this driveway gate is actually pulled forward to be just behind the hedge? So the,
Correct.
Well-
If you go back to the plan, I think it's more clear. But plenty of space to pull in and be out of the way of traffic along Old Montauk Highway. And it's like, actually the plan, I think, not the survey.
but you're essentially,
Getting behind the hedge, to your
you're
point.
essentially filling out the hedge there so that it provides that return in a green way as opposed to
That's
a
right.
constructed
The
way.
hedge is the return.
the hedge is there.
Hedge acts as the return.
That's great.
That's great.
That's great.
So the gate disappears
The
essentially.
gate disappears.
When it's,
I
when
think
it's
it
open.
makes it much less
Yeah.
a part of the streetscape there.
Yeah,
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 it's nice.
100%.
No, I think it's very nice.
Yeah, that's good. Yes.
Right?
And I talked to the,
Looks good?
Yeah.
Kathy, you-
Yeah, I'm good. I think it's a big improvement, and
Very
thank you
nice.
for ticking off all the boxes. It's
Yeah.
so helpful to us when people come back with the complete package, because then we can move on.
Of
the
course.
property manager, he was very, very agreeable.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, so, great, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to accept this application as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. So passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is under extension of time. It's Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-196-1-18. This is 59 Wainscott Hollow Road in Wainscott, and this is one of the 2 applications that's been administratively postponed until September 26th. Next, under extension of time, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-151-1.7.8, 14 Scrimshaw Lane in Amagansett. Chris, this is yours.
Okay, this is an application for a driveway gate at this address, 14 Scrimshaw Lane, which is, Scrimshaw Lane is a dead end just off of Abraham's Path in Amagansett. The resolution approved the gate and posts to be no higher than 6 feet in this design. These are actually, the gates are only just over 5 feet, as you can see. And the posts are just under 6 feet to the very top from grade. So that looks great. And they're asking for an extension of time because they just didn't know that they needed to have an inspection done. So
Did we approve that lighting?
No, he's going
no,
to get to that.
that's
Separate part of it.
Oh,
Just the
This is,
extension of time.
I see, okay. for the
So
gates
in
and the
terms of an
posts.
extension of time, I don't see any issues
That's
with it.
fine.
It's a courtesy,
Sure.
yes.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the application for an extension of time as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, so
Oh,
I don't think they have to be for an extension of time.
But it is on here first. Well, we don't have to be for still, so.
No.
We have comments I can send.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we can direct them to the comments we have here.
okay, so item number 5 was approved.
So if they're on for CO, do we want to just do the CO?
Want to do the CO right now, Chris?
Yeah. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Same tax number.
Yeah, so Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-151-1.7.8, 14 Scrimshaw Lane, Amagansett, for an issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, so this, since the gate and the post seem to be compliant with the resolution, I didn't have any problem with that. There is no call box, by the way, so I assume it's just automated with underground wires. So that's not an issue. The only issue that we have here is the lighting. There apparently was no lighting on the application for the original gates and posts, and I don't think that we're really authorized to give the okay for C of O on something that appears not to be code compliant, which is those
I think that's
non-dark
right,
sky
yeah.
lighting. So I don't know how the board feels about the lighting in general, but in specific case, these don't look like they're dark sky compliant. So I don't think we can really technically
agree.
give an okay.
I agree, because it would, yeah.
It's unfortunate because the gate looks beautifully built and it's compliant and everything else, but I think we'll need to get them to
The lighting and then.
yeah,
Or for that.
Or
for which they have an extension of time.
Or
Yeah.
they could do a modification.
Yeah.
Once they have the extension of time, they can address it.
Well, would we be favorable if they wanted to come back and put dark sky compliant lighting on the piers?
Well, then they would have to do a modification. I'll get
Yeah,
that.
they have to. right.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems to be
I
pretty
think that's a
reasonable.
good plan.
Honestly, this is a dead-end residential wooded back street. This is set pretty far back from the road, from the edge of the pavement. It's, it's not a major
Yeah.
feature of the East Hampton streetscape. So
But it still needs to be code compliant, so I think that's a good
it's nice that they
suggestion.
could have some lighting on their street number there. But,
Or not.
Okay,
okay.
so we're going to vote on this, Julie?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll just
Okay.
give it an incomplete.
Okay.
Give them a chance to fix it.
Okay,
I don't know where we are in this.
so now we're going back to agricultural overlay. The second one that is being administered will be postponed until September 26th. It's a different aspect of what we just postponed. It's Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-196-1-18, 59 Wainscott Hollow Road in Wainscott. So we will visit that at another day. Still under agricultural overlays, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-200-3-41.5, 77 Beach Lane in Wainscott. Diane, this is yours.
Oh, we did.
Oh, we did that. We did that. Oh, okay.
Because of Tara.
Okay, so we're down to item number 8 under agricultural overlays. Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-197-6-18. This is 154 Sayers Path in Wainscott. Dan Scotty, I see you and your team in the audience. I'll make a few comments and then you guys can chime in. So this is an application to build a new 5,006 square foot, 2-story traditional house with a 2-car, 1-story garage and an 844 square foot pool house, guest house on an acre on Sayers Path near its intersection with Main Street, Wainscott. The property, the back of the property abuts the Osborne Farm Lane subdivision. It actually abuts a road in the Osborne Farm Lane subdivision. It's heavily overgrown. So this property, even though it's in an agricultural overlay, it doesn't actually face onto any agricultural overlay. It faces onto a road in the rear. The project is far from the farm fields and it butts up to other houses on both sides. This will never be seen from any field. A sweet but dilapidated house occupies the property. It has a legal guest cottage, so that's why this new property may also have a house and a guest cottage. It would be demolished. This is a sensitive and appropriate addition to this somewhat rural setting of a neighborhood, with scale and mass kept at a minimum. Traditional windows, doors, and railings will mimic some of the older period houses along Main Street in Wainscott. The shape of the house is a central block with with a two-story wing on one side to the left and a one-story wing to the right. So it's a building form we see a lot of. Just to give you a sense of the scale, the existing building coverage for the cottage that's there is 1,975 square feet. The permitted building coverage is 6,521 square feet, and the new proposed building coverage comes in at 5,815 square feet. So it's about 700 square feet under what they could build. Existing total lot coverage, including the driveways, is currently 5,785 square feet. Permitted total lot coverage is 17,388 square feet. This new buildings will come in at 11, and driveways will come in at 11,877 square feet. So again, significantly under what could be built. We approved a similar building that's done by Mr. Scotty, just almost next door, 2 doors down. So it's a form. This traditional form has now become sort of a standard for sort of new construction in the traditional mode in Wainscott, and the buildings all relate nicely to each other. Gentlemen, I'll let you fill in what I missed.
Thank you for that summary. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Dan Scotty. Happy to elaborate on that a little bit. The materials that we're proposing to use here are very consistent with what you've seen us work with in the past and what's very typical of Wainscott. Weathered Alaskan yellow cedar. We're proposing a hand-split yellow cedar roof to give a little bit of a storybook cottage feel to the roof line, a little heavier texture to it. We're going to let the Alaskan yellow cedar sidewall shingles weather naturally over time. And then the rest of the color palette is just soft grays. There's a dark railings from Farrow and Ball for the window sashes, and then a gray that almost sort of mimics the look of weathered cedar for the railings and the other trim on the structures. As Chip was pointing out, we did graduate the volumes. We have the tallest structure in the center, which is really inspired by the 5-bay farmhouses that you see throughout Wainscott, including the Conklin House. There's one other on Sayers Path. There's a couple of them on Wainscott and Main Street, including the Conklin House. The garage is a detached garage in the front, which again is intended to give the appearance that it was built in 2 stages. You had a small carriage house, and then, as the family grew, you'd add another garage bay to it. One of the other materials we're proposing to use here is a corrugated metal roof, which is going to give the appearance of age. And we have that on the shed roof on the cottage, on the garage that you're seeing here, the detached garage, but then also for the guest cottage in the rear yard, we're proposing to use weathered barn board for the siding and a corrugated metal roof. And we've incorporated sort of some whimsical features, like there's a little firewood storage bin that kind of separates the 2 volumes of the guest cottage that you're looking at now. That structure right there, because this property has 2 certificate of occupancies on it, could have been 32 feet in height. It could have been a 2-story, 32-foot structure, but we came in with a very modest 1-story structure that's only, 16 and a half feet in height instead of 32. And sort of the left side of that is, I guess, suite, and then there's some circulation in the center, and on the right side of it is sort of a kitchenette pool house. We're not proposing a separate pool house, which is another thing we could have done. We could have added another structure to this application, but we've incorporated sort of the pool cabana functionality into this guest cottage. And there's a swimming pool that's in between the main residence and the guest cottage. And I think that about covers it. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm just curious about the roof material. I think it's a nice design. I think you've done a good job with, the elevations look presentable, and I like the, the massing in different segments and the variation of height. But I can't seem to visualize the corrugated roof in these photos. It looks like it has some kind of texture to it.
It's hard to render, but you've seen it a million times. It's essentially
It's that old
that
wavy.
wavy
Yeah. It
corrugated
looks
metal
like-
roof.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay, now I can see it better. Yeah,
much
now
more
I see it.
traditional farm-inspired
that's
feel
so crazy.
than a standing scene.
Just came from, I get it, yeah. Huh. And that's what color would that be?
That's metal that'll just.
It's just like
Galvalume?
It's galvanized metal.
Okay.
And we're proposing to use lead-coated copper on all of the gutters and leaders for the main residence, so that'll be a nice complement.
So it's not, it's not energy efficient, this roof. It's just a,
No, it's just a metal roof.
Yeah, I don't think it's any different than if we were to go with,
It'll be
with
very
cedar roof.
shiny.
It actually dulls down very quickly.
Yeah, it's very dull.
The same roof on the house?
No, on the house we have a hand split.
Oh, cedar.
Alaskan yellow cedar. Yeah.
So it's funny, in talking about, Frank and I had a pre-meeting that we do every week. It's funny, I'm not in favor generally of garages and front yards, but because this really doesn't feel like a garage, it feels like some farm buildings that you kept your cars in. It actually, and Frank's point was, it actually reduces the mass of the house because you're looking at another smaller building. So in this case, I think, at least I'm favorably inclined towards it.
And the way it's placed too makes a difference. Yeah.
What are the roof materials on the garage?
So in the garage, the taller volume would be Alaskan yellow cedar hand split, and then the shed dormer would be the corrugated metal roofing.
Okay, so it's two materials.
Yep.
I think it's really beautifully composed, really appropriate, compatible with the area, and shows admirable restraint.
I think Dan knows how to make his client happy and to make us happy.
Well, Dan, is it right that you're the client in this case?
Yeah, I think I'd be viewed as the client on this.
Full disclosure.
So I'm really hoping we like this.
Yeah.
Good.
The
I don't know that I'll keep it, but I'm the decision maker. So.
Okay.
I think, like the accessory structures, if I can call the guest cottage and back, they kind of make the project, it really makes it unique. So, yeah.
Thank you.
It looks like it could have been there for 100 years. If the house that wasn't there, it could have been these houses. So, yeah.
It's really fun to design, smaller, structures, garden follies, or whatever you want to call them.
And how tall is the main residence? What's the height?
It's under 32 in the main volume. It's 31.8. I think 31.8 on the main volume. And then on the left, it steps down to just over 28 feet. And on the right, it steps down to about 25 feet.
Okay.
Very nice. Looks like it's always been there.
I like it.
It's very unusual when we have a whole house in an agricultural overlay that gets through in the first meeting. So that's a real testament to the work you've done to make this presentation easy for us.
So the garage is like vertical cedar, or it's not board and batten? Is it?
No, it's going to be center matched.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the same on the lowest of the wings of the house there on the right.
And on the guest cottage as well.
It's like an STK cedar?
Yeah, it'll probably be a naughty.
Naughty, number 2.
Well, we need to know what it is, right? I mean, we do need to know what it is for the resolution. So we have to have. Yeah, okay.
It's on the plan.
Well, I think that, I'm just out of curiosity. Could one decide to not do naughty select-type knots in, without, do they need our approval to do something? If they decide to do a,
it has to conform to the plan.
I don't know how often we get into that level of grade of wood.
Specified as vertical rough sawn Alaskan yellow cedar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's all we need to know. I mean, and it's not unheard of if a material isn't available and they substitute it out, that we do a, as-built approval.
Yeah. I think materials,
as it's compatible.
most materials are pretty much available now, right?
Yeah, that shouldn't be an
Right,
issue.
but I'm just saying,
It's the clear,
change it out.
vertical grain that's difficult to get.
Yeah.
I don't have any other
Are we good?
questions. I think it looks
Nice
nice.
presentation.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. Okay.
The way you've laid it out on the property, it really doesn't overwhelm like so many have.
Yeah, no, it's a real upgrade for this particular site. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve this project as submitted.
Second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Made it easy.
Okay, where are we?
So easy.
It's been like the,
So are we down to item 9?
Joey Shore, right? That's me.
So back to certificate of occupancy, Suffolk County Tax Map number 156-5-10.2, 417 Route 114 in East Hampton. And Kathy, this is yours.
Right, so this is a certificate of occupancy for some deer fencing that we approved on March 14th of this calendar year. It was black tennis court fence, dimensions at 8 feet. Oh, look how wet it looks. It was, I went there this morning. So this is the one, so they're 8 feet high at two ends and it had 4 feet in the middle. If you could just scroll through, I don't know how many of my pictures made it through, but you can see over on the far side, it's 4 feet high along the side of the court and then 8 feet on either end. And then there's 8 feet high deer fencing on the northwest property line and 8 feet high deer fencing in the rear and side yards. If you could just bring up this survey for a moment. This fence is a little meandery. It's, we just decided to call it the rear and side property lines because it you know, some of it is actually along the property line, but some of it is a little, it doesn't comport to the property line itself. There's an 8 foot, you can see the, up toward the right there that sort of leads into the tennis court. And then it goes around the property pretty much. Anyway, it comports to the resolution as specifically as the resolution was written, which isn't specifically, and I think it's ready to go. So if nobody has any questions. Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department that this application has satisfied the condition and substantially conforms to the ARB approval on the resolution dated March 14th, 2024, and a certificate of occupancy can be issued.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So passed. Next item is under certificate of occupancy is Amagansett Dunes, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-190-2-16. This is 379 Bluff Road in Amagansett. Frank, it's yours.
Okay, this is an application for a certificate of occupancy for one of the units at this condo development in Amagansett. We approved, the resolution calls for one new Velux skylight on the roof facing east, which is what you're looking at, and then 2 Velux skylights on the roof facing west. Well, if you can go to the next sheet, there you are. The skylights will align in elevation with the other existing skylights. From what I can see, they do. Go back to the other one. It's a little larger, but you know, hardly visible even from the, I mean, you can somewhat see it from the inside court, but given the roof pitch, it's not that visible. And that's just, you can't see it from, you have to go into a private area there to even see it. So I have no objection to this.
It's fine to me.
Looks good. Looks good.
Okay.
Okay, I'm pulling up the language here. You got it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department that this applicant has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms to the ARB approval of the resolution dated
December 14th, 2022.
December 14th, 2022, and a certificate of occupancy can be issued. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So passed.
Great. Well, this is miraculous.
Okay, now we're going to go down to comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-190-2-21. This is 325 Bluff Road, Amagansett. Are the applicants in the audience? Sure. So gentlemen, Chris will make a few comments, then we'd like to turn it over to you for your presentation. Chris, all yours.
Okay. This is a project that is before the ARB for us to give our comments to the ZBA who have this application before them. The 2.58 acre flag lot property is one of two improved properties in the Double Dune Preserve area south of Bluff Road in the Bluff Road Historic District. Neither of these two properties has structures considered historic. However, the Double Dune Preserve is included in the Bluff Road Historic District. Therefore, any applications requiring a building permit would come before the ARB for review. The property has limited as of right redevelopment potential due to coastal, environmental, and zoning setback requirements. So we can get into that in a bit, but I'd like to just read the scope of what they're proposing to do, which is to demolish and remove the existing non-FEMA compliant two-story house with full basement and decking, swimming pool with surrounding concrete patio, shed, garbage bin, underground oil tank, and generator. The existing house and deck are located 22 feet landward of the current crest of the dune. Then they're going to reconstruct the affected dune to include re-veg with native plantings and a sand pathway to the beach with a section of the existing wood walk in that pathway to remain. And then construct a new two-story FEMA-compliant single-family residence with an elevated terrace, a barbecue area, swimming pool and spa, garage, outdoor shower, ground-level deck with sunken fire pit, exterior planters, generator, underground LP gas tanks, a new IA septic system, geothermal HVAC system, site drainage, including a limited retaining wall, and redesign/reduction of the existing pervious driveway parking area. All structures to be located landward of the 100-foot dune crest setback. So that's their description. You've got an existing versus there's a view of the proposed house. You've got the existing versus proposed in terms of clearing and coverage. You've got existing 24% total coverage versus proposed 22.4, so a net decrease of about 1,500 square feet. Existing clearing is 30% versus their proposed at 19.1% with a net decrease of 8,783 square feet. Building coverage, they're going from 4.4% up to 7.9%, or a net increase of 3,474 square feet. The house is, as you can see, it's flat roofed, two-story with glass railing surrounding a roof deck, significant expanses of floor-to-ceiling glass, stone cladding, stucco, soffits, painted steel, edge trims. The windows have painted metal frames as well. It's built out to the allowable pyramid and/or setback limits on the north and the west sides, which is the landward side and the side closest to closer to Indian Wells. It's constrained incredibly on this site between the FEMA flood zone designation line, and which the house is completely behind. It just scoots right behind that line. It's got it's behind the crest of the bluff, or in this case, crest of dune setback line. It's the federal coastal erosion hazard line, which is kind of a swath, runs right through the area. It seems to clip a little bit of the pool area, but the house looks like it's behind it. And they've got two different fingers of wetlands north of the property. And so you've got setbacks of 100 and 150 foot setback lines that they presented to us in their supplemental information that was sent this morning, where you can see that the house is kind of, has to find a place between all these different lines, and I'm sure that's why they're here. They're in front of the ZBA for those kinds of issues. The submitted exterior lighting plans show 30 recessed downlights and exterior soffits. I guess there's, let's see, we've got path and step lighting, which we can go through when we go through the plans. You can see that, the path and step lighting looks dark sky compliant and very much like, similar fixtures we've seen before in other applications. We would need a full ARB review, obviously, to consider the amount of lighting there. The pool lighting is not really indicated, but I would imagine that the visibility of light emanating from a pool that's down there in the dunes would probably be a valid area for us to be discussing with a full submission of that. So I could get into the zoning code issues surrounding this, but I don't know if you guys want to do your presentation.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit about the genesis of the project and kind of why it is the way it is.
Sure, please come up. And Chris, can you remind us why this is, typically we don't review a project in the dunes?
Oh, this is still within the historic district.
It's in the Bluff Road Historic
Bluff Road
District.
Historic District. So
those are the criteria we're meant to be applying when we review
Although this
this.
house is not a historic.
Exactly.
Existing house is not historic.
Exactly.
There's 6 houses in this district that are non-historic. 2 of them are between the road and the ocean, and there's 14 houses on the inland side of the Bluff Road that are historic. So altogether there's 20 houses, and this is probably the most difficult of the non-historic houses.
Right. So I've done what I've done in preparation for this is to give the board a bit of a kind of contextual understanding of some of the issues, since this is one of the properties that's specifically called out in the zoning code. It has specific considerations that we might that we should take into consideration in addition to the general
Standards.
So,
okay. So, sir, please identify yourself.
My name is Carl Smith. I'm speaking for Leroy Street Studio Architecture on behalf of the client. So our client fell in love with the picturesque natural beauty of this site and the unique sense of isolation of the house and of the property. We think it's very rare to find a property like this one still anywhere on Eastern Long Island. It's surrounded by a relatively undisturbed dune, and it's quite set apart from any neighboring houses. So that's very unique, and that's what our client fell in love with. She and her family are very committed to protecting and enhancing the integrity of the site, and their appreciation guided our efforts in developing the house and the site plan that restores and celebrates and defers to the landscape. So that's kind of the intent of the proposal. Our proposal for 325 Bluff Road was conceived and developed around the concepts of dune restoration, sustainable landscape and site design, and coastal resilience, as well as preserving its sense of sheltered isolation and lack of visual impact on the adjacent road. So we believe, from our reading of the Bluff Road Historic District Code, we believe that the architectural integrity of our proposal and the aspirations of our site plan are well aligned with the goals of the Bluff Road Historic District as it applies to this site in particular. The proposal was developed in close collaboration with our team, which consists of Jim Grimes, who consulted on native vegetation and landscape and dune restoration, as well as Ed Hollander, who worked on the landscape a little bit, immediately surrounding the house, collaboratively with Jim, Melissa Dadovich, who's here today, who's our environmental consultant and worked closely with Brian Frank, and with Jim Kim from Men at Work Construction. So the proposal, from earliest days, the proposal was developed really in close dialogue with Brian Frank because of all of the constraints that Chris cited. I'm sure you all know the chief environmental analyst. We engaged with Brian way back in the beginning of the design process in order to ensure that all of our assumptions about siting and dune and vegetation restoration, as well as prioritization of coastal and dune crest retreat as weighed against freshwater wetlands, were all kind of in line with the town's goals, which we believe in our proposal they are. The existing house at 325, like Chris said, it's non-compliant with current site plan requirements in a number of ways. It's built literally on top of the dune, right in the middle of the double dune ecosystem, which is a very unique ecosystem. It is seaward of the dune crest setback. It is seaward of the coastal erosion hazard line, and it is in a FEMA VE flood zone. But of course, its construction predates any of the FEMA requirements. And it is already kind of partially non-compliant with some of the freshwater wetland setbacks. Our proposal is to create a significantly more compliant and resilient new site plan and house, also incorporating some updated sustainability features in the process. So the bulk of our new house is located north of the boundary between the FEMA and AE and VE zones. So that kind of boundary goes right through the site. So the entire main house is entirely in the AE zone, with only the pool and the garage further south in the VE zone. But both the house and the garage and pool complex are all engineered and will be built to FEMA standards for flood resistance. We're using engineered flood vents and breakaway wall construction to make it comply with new flood standards. The house will be engineered and built to hurricane-rated standards with a combination of hurricane-rated windows and supplemental protection systems. The site of the existing house will be regraded and revegetated with native plant species appropriate to the double dune ecosystem. And the overall area of clearing on the site is reduced, as Chris said, with significant areas of paving and sod being restored to native vegetation. The new house will be heated and cooled using a closed-loop geothermal system, which reduces the carbon footprint, but also eliminates all of the unsightly, cooling units out in the lawn. And it will, like Chris said, use an updated aerobic septic system, which will better protect the surrounding groundwater. So our proposed house itself is lower in profile, and it's really meant to recede from view even compared to the existing house, creating a greater sense of privacy for our client, but also at the same time visually disconnecting it from the enclave on Bluff Road even more than the existing house is disconnected. So as seen from Bluff Road, the existing house, I think we included some visuals in the presentation. There's a series of photographs along the road, and it's very difficult to see even in its current.
Plus, I think we uploaded there we go. You could. Oh, great.
Thank you.
So we took these photos, Melissa took these photos in the winter so that the current vegetation in its kind of winter state could be taken into consideration. And to the extent that it's visible, the existing house is in the photographs. The place where it's most able to be seen is if you're standing at the Maritime Museum and looking over the roof of the building to the right. You can just kind of see the pitched roof of the existing building peeking over the building there. The green dashed line represents the profile of the new building relative to those same views. So we believe, this came out of a natural topography of the site. The new house is retreated from the dune crest, and therefore it's kind of located lower and low slung in the swale, which enhances our client's sense of privacy, which she appreciates, but also it really disconnects it even more from the road. So as we were developing our site response and our design, we also did, study carefully the Bluff Road Historic District guidelines. And we were very aware of the importance of this district and of our property's relationship to it. Our reading of the Bluff Road Historic District Code is that the property's importance and its inclusion in the district is not based on its contribution to the architectural character, which obviously it doesn't, it's a newer building. But rather for its protection of the viewshed from Bluff Road and from the original 14 houses, the Amagansett colony. So we believe that, our focus on restoring the dune and on kind of reducing the profile of the house and, painstakingly kind of caring for the dune around the house is beneficial to the historic character of the colony. One of the things that the code notes a number of times with regard to the double dune and this property is just the importance of the viewshed from the 14 original houses across the dunes to the ocean and the kind of wild natural character. So we believe that in enhancing that, we're kind of improving the experience of that from the original 14. When we think about the code in its entirety, we feel like the aspirations of the guidelines are largely sympathetic with our clients' hopes for the site. I could get into, if you read the code as it regards the original 14 and then the other 5 non-historic buildings that are situated along Bluff Road, it talks about maintaining the historic integrity of the district. But even in those properties, there is deference given to the parts that are viewed from Bluff Road and kind of more leniency granted when you're in the rear yard or when you're away from the street. So we took that to apply to our property as well. That's kind of how we approached it, and it really was driven from a close collaboration with Brian and an attempt to restore the site and protect the site. If you have any questions, we appreciate the audience and would love to discuss any concerns you might have or questions you might have.
Well, I think it's admirable how you've done sort of an environmental analysis, and this house will be very much better than the house that's there. But we are not an environmental group. We're the Architecture Review Board.
Understood.
And our job is to uphold the code as it pertains to the Bluff Road Historic District. So I think Chris wants to talk a little bit. I think we may interpret the code a lot different than the way you've been interpreting it based on this is new construction in an historic district, and I think Chris will talk to that.
Sure.
Yeah, well, it is a unique property. It definitely falls under the ARB review, using standards and criteria outlined in the zoning code, chapter 255-7-60, and the general standards for historic landmarks in historic districts, which is 255-7-60B, and then more specifically in sections of Appendix B of the zoning code, which is the Bluff Road Historic District Guidelines. But this property, as you've noted, is also specifically called out. This one property is called out specifically in Appendix B to quote, 325 Bluff Road has a unique circumstance, being set back approximately 900 feet south of Bluff Road. The board will take into account the degree to which the proposed work will be visible from Bluff Road. Priority would be given to the compatibility of the most visible features of the proposed work. So due to this, a careful review of the standards and criteria, as well as the general purposes and goals stated in the code for review of projects within this historic district, I think is warranted. So if you go through back to the general architectural review, the purposes of an architectural review, they say it's important to ensure that commercial building design and in certain circumstances residential building design are harmonious with the town's essential character. Excessive uniformity or dissimilarity of design should be generally avoided, as should design which is inappropriate to the traditional and historic character of East Hampton architecture. And I'm just bringing these things up because it's the code, and it's kind of for all of us to understand what the basis of our discussion
Criteria
should be.
Yeah, 100%.
Because this is really a it's a delicate balance here between the different things. So
yeah, no, that's understood. And as we reviewed the code, I mean, clearly we saw the bullet point that set 325 apart and focused on its contribution being relative to the viewshed.
Right.
And, the historic guidelines as applied to, I would say, the other 5 non-historic houses seem entirely appropriate because as you travel down Bluff Road, you're aware of it as an enclave. And those other 5 houses are, really visually present within that enclave. But we really felt that the degree to which our property warranted, review within the historic district was the degree to which it was visible or not visible. So we feel like the best thing we could do for the enclave on Bluff Road was enhance the natural landscape and keep our building as invisible as possible. We did not deem the kind of historic building guidelines. I mean, obviously, we didn't feel like we were building to the historic construction guidelines or very different property. We felt that it was included only for its contribution to not being visible from the road and maintaining the natural landscape.
Okay. I think in that sense, we've got, I would say that in that sense, there are some general standards that typically in a historic district, we're tasked with maintaining in terms of maintenance of character, and what we should encourage, but those are shoulds. Those are not things that are prescriptive. The board, for example, I mean, this could, easily work in your favor to say the board shall encourage traditional architectural treatments such as gabled roofs and use of cedar shingles or wood siding. However, the board shall not be precluded from taking into account the use district in which a new or altered structure is proposed to be placed and the relative visibility of the structure to the general public, and may draw distinctions in its review of approval of structures based on material differences in the locations of such structures. So there's a lot of nuance to our code here, and it's confusing. That's why I wanted to go through it, because it's important for us to be using the right criteria to really understand this project.
I feel compelled to say, if we felt, when we read the historic code, early days in kind of putting our team together and figuring out how to approach this property, if we had felt that the mandate was to adhere to the historic standards on the new construction that wasn't visible, we probably would have been speaking with you guys a lot earlier than this.
Right.
But that's not how it read to us.
Okay. I'm going to keep going through these just because I think everybody has to be on the same page when we're having this discussion, and presenting our comments to the ZBA. The review board, in terms of assurance of harmony, the review board is further charged with exercising sound judgment and with rejection of plans which, in its opinion, based on study and advice, are not of harmonious character because of proposed style, scale, materials, mass, line, color, detail, or placement upon the property of proposed buildings in relation to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of the landscape. We're given flexibility, and again, individual initiative and experimentation are not to be discouraged unless necessary to carry out the duties of the board. Though the preferred and historic type of construction is wood frame and exterior, the review board is not to use design review intentionally or inadvertently to prohibit or unduly restrict alternative style building types, materials, or methods in case where these alternatives can also fulfill the purposes of this article. So it's really going back and forth here, and I want to. That's why I want to really. I mean,
when I was trying to tease this issue out, I read through the code as it applied to accessory buildings. The new construction has accessory buildings and then new houses, and in accessory buildings, even for the original 14, protected homes that create the architectural character of the district, even with regard to those homes, anything that was behind the house relative to Bluff Road, like as an accessory, whether it was a garage or a shed or anything like that, a pool house, even those were exempt from review just by virtue of their being behind the historic house. Right. To Bluff Road.
I don't think that has anything to do with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to go through all of it, because there's a lot of ground here, and I'm sorry it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think it's worth it for us to really understand it. It says in the general standards, and this is again 255-7-60B, general standards for historic landmarks and historic districts. Architectural Review Board shall For a property within the historic district, the ARB shall be governed by the standards and criteria set forth in this subsection. Preservation of historic character, we're not really talking about on this property. Compatibility of alterations, it's not an alteration. Compatibility of new construction. Any buildings or structures which are erected, constructed, or placed on property designated as a landmark, which this is not, or located within a historic district, shall be compatible with the historic character of the landmark or historic district. That's a tough one. In applying the principle of compatibility, that's paragraph 3, and paragraph 4 continues, in applying the principle of compatibility as set forth in this subsection, the ARB shall consider the following factors: general design, character, and appropriateness to the property, scale of the proposed alteration, addition, or new construction in relation to the property itself, surrounding properties, and the historic district, which obviously you're not comparing yourself to the historic houses on Bluff Road. This is a different animal there. Texture, color, and type of material used, visual compatibility of the proposed alteration, addition, or new construction with the landmark or with other properties within the historic district.
I mean, in some ways, the dune is the landmark that we're, worried about.
Absolutely, it's an essential, and I think everybody here is absolutely on board with everything.
Yeah, but I mean, even with regard to the house itself, the house, our notion of the house was derived from responding to the sand and responding to the dunescape and trying to make a building that largely receded relative to those things. So the stone cladding, as Mark is showing you, the stone cladding is meant to kind of echo the sand.
Beautiful color.
And the transparency of the building, which I know is at odds with the historic character of the buildings on Bluff Road, it's really meant to maximize transparency and to be as deferential as it can be to the actual landscape.
Okay.
So that's where that came from.
So I think one of the issues here is the preservation goals for the historic district, which I think is the biggest overarching thing here, is obviously to maintain integrity of the historic houses, allow additions and other changes to rear facades. That's all on the north side of Bluff Road. Retain other features of the setting that maintain the relationship of the houses to the Atlantic Ocean, including the rural character of Bluff Road and the open dune area, which you're addressing with your restoration work. Goal number letter E is to enhance the setting by encouraging restoration of views from Bluff Road across the dunes to the ocean, and to protect, and then F, protect the character of Bluff Road by requiring that new construction or redevelopment of non-historic properties be compatible with the character of the district established by the historic houses. And that, again, you could construe that to mean that's more related maybe to the houses that are immediately along the main line there. So there are guidelines in B7 for new construction, as you mentioned, accessory buildings, and for new construction of residences. The design of new construction should respond to the architectural traditions and character of the Bluff Road Historic District as established by the historic houses. A new building should fit into the existing context while preserving the sense of evolution and the authenticity of the historic district. Particularly important is compatibility of sizing, size, scale, height, massing, and materials. The town code provides criteria for judging the compatibility of new construction in 255-7-60B, and they're further defined in the paragraphs that follow regarding scale, harmony and scale with the historic houses in the district. Again, we can probably say that this is so far away that it's really not the same.
I mean, that is really what we were taking our cue from, was the specific call out.
The same as height issues, massing. The historic houses are predominantly simple forms with some complexity given by cross gables, recessed porch, and dormer windows. I mean, you're clearly in having taken the tack that you have, it's obviously really a question of how much we're going to be leaning on these and to what degree they're applicable to this property. So
yeah, I mean, if I could speak to Chip, your point that the rear yard accessories aren't relevant. The only reason I cited that is because it feels like when you read this in its entirety, there is some flexibility and some adaptability given, and the standard by which that is judged seems to be the degree to which it's visible from the historic enclave.
Right. So I went with Chris 2 days ago, and we stood on the parapet wall, which is a 2-foot wall that surrounds the swimming pool, and we looked up to Bluff Road. I counted 24 buildings that I could see from your property. There were the 14 historic houses. There was the life-saving station. There were other houses. So if I can see those houses can see your new house. And I think the underlying concern is you're basically putting a glass shoebox in a 100-acre double dune situation. And when you put in things like 30 downlights in the soffits, this thing is going to light up at night like LaGuardia Airport. And there was never the intention to have a glass box all lit up in this double dune. So, going through the code, you're not respectful of the traditional architecture, which we have a little leniency on. But I think the real issue is this thing is going to stick out like a sore thumb. And it doesn't relate to anything in that historic district.
I think that if you, what concerns me is that in another application of this code is the importance of the views, and Bluff Road and the Double Dune area owned by the town of East Hampton are important components of the setting of the historic houses of the Bluff Road Historic District. So the code is really establishing that the Double Dune area is very important component. The rural character of Bluff Road, the natural vegetation. You need to.
I'd like to hear from Diane. Or let's just poll the board and get their thoughts, because this is.
I haven't even said any.
I'm sorry, I have to leave. This is
just
very
talk. So
interesting.
let each board member talk for a second. Okay.
It's a very, very interesting project. If nobody else could see it, I would say it's a magical glass cube, not a shoebox. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I can understand the intentions of the clients but if other people can see it, it doesn't.
What concerns me about the visibility is that the code is specifically encouraging a clearing and restoring of views. The setting of the historic district should be enhanced by restoring views from Bluff Road across the dunes to the ocean by selectively clearing and pruning vegetation within the road right-of-way. Bob Hefner, in his 89 and 1990 Historic Preservation Appendix to the Town Comprehensive Plan, said the setting of the district would be enhanced and the threat of redevelopment of the second and third stories of the cottages would be reduced if views to the ocean were maintained and improved through management of the hedgerow on the south side of Bluff Road by the town and the Nature Conservancy. So we're looking at an active goal of the code to improve the views, which would open up more view of this property. And that's something that none of us can control, whether it's through, bluff restoration purposefully planned, or it's by blight or insects or fire or flood or anything. So we don't know how that's going to play out over time. So that's certainly a consideration. We can look at how the vegetation is now, and I appreciate that you guys went in the winter to take those pictures, and certainly now you can't see a thing. I mean, it's fully grown in because of all the leaves, but that's kind of just an indication of how things can change. So we're really stuck between this, the special circumstances of this being far away. And I think if we take a look, Will, at the photos.
Chris, let some of the other board members give their views.
I think, Kathy, I don't know if you saw the photos of the.
Yeah, I did. I saw them.
Will, do you have my photos from the site?
Oh, I don't think I saw yours. I only saw the ones that were submitted by the applicant.
So I have a question. It seems a critical part of this application is how visible it is. How visible is this from the historic district as well as Bluff Road, which is the historic district in that bluff there? Currently, it's quite, as we know, it's quite overgrown. The vegetation has grown up to where you can't, there are very limited places in which you can actually see down into the dunes from Bluff Road. So my question is there anything that precludes the town from clearing that at a future date to reduce that to actually restoring, as you said, it's stated in there in the code, the historic district, the desire to restore that view shed, not from just the second floor of private houses, but from that walkway and that road to Dune Road to, not Dune Road, from Bluff Road to see down into the dunes and the ocean. So I think that, I assume that there is nothing to keep the town from doing that. And we have to view this as like the life cycle of this, that if we're going to build sustainably, as you state you'd like to do, we have to assume the life cycle of those houses is probably 50 years or so. So we have to consider what the ramifications are this from Bluff Road for the next 50 years. And particularly if there is a desire by the town at a future date to say, there will be a public benefit by reducing the vegetation and clearing it, so there'll be a public view out to the ocean, in which case it will become much more visible. So I just wanted to state that I think how important that view is.
I think that was because that was stated several times in the Bluff Road guidelines about encouraging restoration of the open dune area and the view shed to the connecting the houses to the ocean.
And the double dunes are a national treasure. They're very singular.
There's been a lot of discussion, of course, about compatibility context in a historic district. And to me, it seems, and the code allows for this, that it recognizes how unique this property is and how set away from it. The only thing really that's tying it to the historic district, aside from its vista, is actually its driveway. However, it is right in the view corridor of the historic district in that bluff, which the code clearly says is important. So, I mean, to me, it seems that there's language that allows for a modern design. I mean, one could also argue, though it's not in Bluff Road, that there is context within the town of East Hampton building right off the ocean for modern architecture. So there's something actually contextual about that. I do have some questions, just some general numbers. The existing proposed and allowable things like gross floor area, like what is it now? Is the house getting bigger? The GFA, building coverage, lot coverage, and the building height. I don't want to get bogged down, just to give an idea of the scale of this.
I think it goes from 3,000 square feet existing house to about 9,000 square feet for the new house. Is that correct?
Roughly. Yes, roughly.
Just roughly, yeah. So it's 3 times roughly.
So what's the existing GFA? What's the proposed?
Existing is 4,000, just shy of 4,000. Oh, sorry.
Put up the existing house photo, please.
Sure. So the existing house is roughly 4,000 square feet, and the new house is just over 9,000 square feet. That is
okay. So twice.
Yes, plus.
Yeah.
Melissa Dedovich. Actually, if you look at the picture of the existing house, it's an exposed, you've been to the site, it's actually an exposed 3-story on the facade that's facing Bluff Road. So that basement is actually habitable, and that is about 6,246 square feet of habitable.
Is that FEMA, is a basement
FEMA? It's not FEMA compliant, exactly.
Okay, so I don't think we can really consider that as.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like.
Existing.
So it's a non-FEMA compliant, and yet it's 6 feet 6 inches taller than what our proposed house is going to be, and not FEMA compliant.
So you're bringing down the maximum height of the building by how much?
6 feet.
6 inches.
Now, what about, does that include the glass railing of the roof?
I don't believe
terrace?
so. No, it does not include the glass railing.
So there's, just reminding the board, there is a roof terrace on this.
Right.
We would be
With the railing.
happy to not have a roof terrace. That was the sticking point.
Okay. I mean, to me, like backing up, I think you can see where I'm coming at this from is really, what is it going to look like from the public view shed in that historic district? And so two critical things are scale and, how is that scale applied, right? And so clearly the house is getting much larger. And of course, it's not getting larger because, you have to maintain a certain FEMA level. So you're spreading out, right? So the footprint of the house is getting much larger.
It's actually maxed out to be as close to the FEMA line and as close to the pyramid and setback lines as possible on those three locations.
But they need a freshwater wetland permit, right?
Yeah, and the wetlands are.
That's not within our purview.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to.
Actually, the total coverage is being reduced by 1,524 feet. Because the sprawl, because you've got the house, the 3-story house existing, you've got the pool over here and everything. If you look at the comparison sheets, we've tucked everything in together. So the detached garage is actually.
Yeah, they bumped it back and consolidated.
Correct. We consolidated everything as close as possible. So the pool is actually partially like on top of the garage, like everything's been.
More spread out. And then
it is, but
that's why the clearing has been reduced.
But in perspective from Bluff Road, the width of the house is seen visually becomes much wider.
That's much lower.
Right. Could we see the profile? The one that was sent?
Okay, so I'm just.
No, I hear what you're saying.
So,
but that's what we thought if it was brought a little wider. It's not much wider than what's existing, but then drop down into the swell because we're actually building at the lowest point of the whole property and heights taken from existing natural grade. So this shows like we took a cross section of the existing house and you've got the deck in front of it. So you've got that deck, you've got the big house, then you've got the parking and everything else and the swimming pool and everything. Here we've restored, when we remove the house, we restore that whole dune and then we consolidate everything to, you have the pool, the garage and everything closer and drop down further.
So the 6 foot difference in height is relative old to new. It's not that the actual building height above grade at the house is 6 feet lower. So it looks about the same height of house. It's just built on 6 foot on an elevation that's about 6 foot lower.
Taller house. Our maximum is 5.
I think we have to land on a decision here.
So let me just say one more thing. So one of the comments you made was you want to make the house as invisible as possible. So getting back to the view of the bluff from the public view, like what's been brought up before, I have concerns about the light emission. I think I'm less concerned about how this reads visually during the day. And I will say also, it's a very elegant design. I'm not knocking that. It's a beautiful design. My concern would be how envision yourself on the bluff on a moon, a full moon night, you want to look out on the ocean and there's the concern about the light emission as seen from Bluff Road. So I have some concerns about the amount of glazing that faces the dune. I mean, the ocean, that's not our purview, and in terms of a view shed, I'm concerned about the amount of glazing versus wall facing. And I understand sort of architecturally why you did it, but I'm concerned about the amount of glazing and is there anything you can do to reduce that? The amount of glazing that would be illuminated from Bluff Road, facing Bluff Road.
And the life-saving station because, on Atlantic Avenue.
Could you consider, I don't want to get into suggestions of architecture, but that's a general comment, concerns about that I think that the rest of the board would probably bring up. Are there ways to mitigate that with privacy screens or something that's up to you all, but That's a concern of mine.
That's not a 50-year solution.
So, well, I mean, a privacy screen architecturally.
Yeah,
Right.
I see.
So
Louvers or something.
I'm not saying you should go down that path, but I think the amount of glazing facing Bluff Road may encounter some resistance on this board as currently proposed.
Kathy?
Yeah, I find the design very elegant. I think it's a really nice building. I just don't think it's in the right place. And I appreciate your, the restoration that I think you're required to take to, to do this work by bumping it back. But I'm worried about the view shed and the light that this will, the light emissions that this will create. And I'm not 100% clear on, I appreciate Chris's reading through all that. I've read them myself many times, but it's important to refresh each time because, this is very peculiar. I went to visit the site today myself. I mean, it's well in off Bluff Road, but you can see it from certain places. So I think that, our obligation is to preserve that. That's one of our charges, is to preserve the view shed. So I think if you could come back with a different proposal for some of this that might lower it, I don't particularly object to the way you have it masked, but if it can be seen, then you might go down a little bit more. And I think Frank's concerns about the glazing, that I have concerns about that as well.
I think from a FEMA standpoint of view, you probably can't go any lower in terms of what are the floor.
Well, no, I just mean the second floor, lower.
What are the interior floor heights proposed here?
The ceiling heights.
Ceiling heights.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
The ceiling heights?
Yes.
9 foot on the lower floor.
And what about the top floor?
I believe it's 9 foot on the lower floor, and I can't recall if it's 10 or 10.6. I think 10.6 on the upper floor.
Well, you've got some room there. You could bring the upper floor down a little bit. That might help. I don't know if that's substantial enough to.
I think that I know that your firm has done work that's very sensitively analyzed historic context, and I get it that loud and clear that you through your own careful reading of this code, you didn't think that this particular house would have that in terms of compatibility and preservation, it was all about the dune and not the house, and that you're trying to use self-effacing colors and materials that would make the house disappear, which is, as Frank said, it works very well in the daytime, but at night it is a different issue because light is not one of those materials. But I think fundamentally we're going to have to find the balance between the special circumstance that this property is called out for, and the two areas of the code where I see are somewhat in opposition of that, which is compatibility of new construction. Mm-hmm. Any buildings or structures which are erected, constructed, or placed on property designated within a historic district shall be compatible. Not should be, but shall be compatible with the historic character of the landmark or historic district. And in Appendix B, which is specifically the Bluff Road guidelines, in B6-C, paragraph 2, any work requiring a building permit is subject to review and shall be judged by the Architectural Review Board using the principles of compatibility that we talked about. So we've got those two prescriptive things that we have to follow. And then we've got another one that's specific to this project, which says we should give some leeway to how far this is back from and out of view. And then we have other parts of the code relating specifically to the Bluff Road guidelines, which says that they, in several places, are encouraging restoration of that view shed and opening up of that view shed. So they're specifically talking about restoring the views from Bluff Road to the ocean across those dunes. And I think if you go back to Just flip through the photos yeah, I mean, here you are looking from Atlantic Beach across to the life-saving station. The red arrow is the property. You see other houses along Bluff Road up there. That's a sweeping dune view. Let's keep going. That's the view of the house. You can pass that. Look, although you do see down the driveway one of the historic houses, and that's roughly, right where you'd arrive at the new house there. There's a little closer view of some of the historic public buildings as well as some of the houses on Bluff Road that you see, and the character of the dune there is really what you guys are working to restore, and is incredibly appreciated. Absolutely. This is a zooming in of the view of the property from Atlantic Avenue. So that's misty day, but keep going. This is the view. This is
Atlantic Avenue.
Yeah. This is the view from the house, we're pretty much at the same height as the first floor would be of the house, although the house would be closer to Bluff Road than the existing house. So you're seeing across already a few of the houses on Bluff Road. Keep going. Again, apologies for you can't zoom in too much with the iPhone because it's everything gets blurry and pixelated, but you see a lot of the properties there, and the public buildings as well that you can see from the property. And so that there's a reciprocity of that view. This gives a sense of the character from the swimming pool area, which would pretty much be the proposed house area of dune area. And you can see the southern crest of the double dune right there, that they're talking about preserving and restoring. Let's keep going. Do you have the ones, the two that are labeled? I don't know if you have the file names there. One's the Leroy 1 and 2. Yeah, this one is a really great view of historic context and a study that you did of some, very sensitive understanding and interpretation of the historic context of some buildings for this proposed house. I guess that eventually did get built, and there's the picture of it at the bottom. Here's another house that uses some of the traditional forms and materials. Now, your work is fantastic and at a super high level, and some of it is much more, I'm going to say, international style, kind of like what we're seeing in the current application. Some of it is more specifically required by some of the historic context, perhaps. But I love looking through your website at the variety of the projects and how you approach each one individually. And so I don't think anybody on this board is trying to dissuade you from that level of high quality of design. And I just wonder if we're trying to find and work with you on finding the right balance between the exceptional circumstance of this house being further away from Bluff Road and non-historic, but also part of and integral to that view shed. It's also part of the district. So we have to find that balance and thread that needle.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, in the guidelines for non-historic houses, Chris started to touch on this, but the most important thing I think we can tell you tonight is this, that any changes do not detract from the setting of an historic house and do not diminish the character of the historic district. Therefore, any proposed changes to a non-historic house should be judged for their comparability with neighboring historic houses and with the character of the Bluff Road Historic District. And I really respect your work. It's a beautiful modern house, but it doesn't adhere to anything that I just read. And I think, we don't we're not anti-modern houses, but we're anti-glass boxes lit up at night in a 100-acre double dune section. And, there's a couple ways we can go forward with this. I think we should probably think about wrapping it up. You can come back to us with some other ideas, or we can write up our comments and give it to the ZBA based on what we've all discussed tonight.
Well, isn't that what's before us? Aren't we asked, isn't the ZBA that asked us for
They
these
asked
comments?
asked us for this project, but I mean,
Right.
if I want to give you a chance to say, if we're thinking of making a few alterations that we might be more positively inclined to when we write to the ZBA, we'd be happy to entertain that. If you want us to just go with what we've talked about tonight, we're happy to do that too.
I also want to state that perhaps not every board member sees the contextual argument the same on this. I mean, I'm not sure that this house, scale aside, 900 feet in the dunes diminishes the architecture of the houses on Bloom Bluff Road. I'm not convinced of that. And I think the code of the historic district recognizes how the uniqueness of this being so separated from it. It's about the view of it. I don't think this is seen as being part of the context of that Bluff Road.
But I think that this, the one thing that the other part of the district, besides the houses and besides the dune, is also the public buildings, which are in the bluff, in the dune preserve.
I will say, I can't imagine what a 9,000 square foot cedar shingled pitched roof house would look in the dunes like this. I mean, if you think this looks large, I can't imagine what that would look like.
Yeah, and that speaks to maybe what you're talking about in other areas. Like there's a certain beautiful jewel box in Wainscott on the beach, which is a small jewel box of wood construction, and the scale. It's completely modern. The scale is completely different, though, and I think.
Can I just ask a question? I mean, if the ZBA asked us for comments.
We're making comments on this application.
On this application.
As presented.
Right. And this application is before this application, not one that we might suggest they come back to us for with architectural changes, is before the ZBA for variances.
You'd have to change the whole thing.
I think we need to just comment on this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trouble them to come back to us because they don't know if they're going to get their variances anyway.
True.
So I don't know why we would, I mean, they're not going to resubmit architectural changes to us and then resubmit their variances to the ZBA, right? I mean.
It would be a whole switch.
I just feel like they might,
The team's been at this
for 3 years.
No, I understand, but
it's an incredibly deep and serious.
The applicant did not ask us for comments. The ZBA did.
Right.
So we are responding to the ZBA's request for comments, not the
But
applicant.
what we want to be clear about what our comments are going to
100%.
be.
This has been very helpful.
I want to say, Frank, though, when this historic district was created, they could have left this property out,
That's right.
and they chose not to.
That's right. That's an important piece.
Initially, when
Yeah.
I thought about the property, it was astonishing to me it was even in this district.
No, you make
But
a
when
good
you go to the site and you stand there and you do a 360 whirling around, you understand why it's in the district. Because it's such an important part of that district.
Right.
So, I'm not against modern houses. If this thing wasn't so light emitting, I might be a little bit more favorable towards it. But the lighting, if you see these modern farmhouses, glass box farmhouses in Wainscott that light up these agricultural fields, this is sort of the equivalent of that, even though it's a double dune situation. And we're there to protect the environment. And the environment is this incredible 100-acre double dune thing. So I think maybe, sir, would you like to say something and we'll wrap this up?
Sure. I'm Mark Turkel. I'm one of the partners at Leroy Street Studio. And I want to start just by saying that I'm incredibly grateful to the board for so thoughtfully grappling with what's clearly
it is grappling. It's not an easy thing here.
Problem to solve. And I just want to help with some framework for this, because what we try to do as a firm is eschew style. It's not a stylistic proposition to come to this site and choose and take sides. Or if we were taking sides, it was with the landscape that we took sides, and we believe there's an architecture of the landscape that's deferential that sits and kind of learns from, retreats, understands the context, and then does its best to be of the dunes, and then as it ascends, dematerialize. And I think we can solve for the light impact that you're concerned about. But one of the things that your code, it's actually I think very progressive historic bluff guidelines offers, is a way of thinking about architectural evolution. And we're not pitched roof, shingle style folk anymore. And we need a place to go, and we need to be able to design architecture that's responsible and thoughtful. And this, probably more than anything we could offer, we collectively in the room could offer Bluff Road, is the least obtrusive, intrusive by day, and let's solve for it by night.
Okay, that's a great way to put it.
That's a great way to end this discussion.
And we would, so, I mean,
I would imagine, in terms of letting the landscape be the proponent, I would lean more toward Alvar Aalto than Richard Neutra. So maybe that's
something we could talk about over a beer after.
There you go.
okay. So, I mean, I don't want you to go back and start all over again and thinking about it. So we will make a balanced set of comments, taking in everything we've said, everything you've just said, and submit it to the ZBA. You will get a copy of it. And I think if there was one thing I would tell you is it's the night light that would probably be our biggest concern.
And we'll say that in our comments. It'll be in the letter.
And in terms of the ZBA, are they going to be looking to us for any specific feedback about?
Well, this will come back to it. Once you actually get approval, you will be back here again to talk
but
about.
is the ZBA looking to us for specifics? Do we know anything about what they're asking?
We can review that. We can review that offline. We don't have to do that here. We can review that.
Yeah.
I think we can let these people go and discuss that,
Yeah.
It's mainly the historic district designation here that requires our review. Otherwise, it wouldn't be before us, I don't think.
But the House would be back before us when everything is approved because it's going to be in the historic district.
My point is the only reason the ZBA is asking us is because it's in the historic district, and we have jurisdiction over the historic districts. If it wasn't in the historic district, we wouldn't be asked for comments. We wouldn't even be entertaining this.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else applicants would like to add?
I think we've heard everything you've said, and appreciate the time.
Are you the new owner in the middle?
No, that's not. No, that she's.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, is that Liz?
No, the lady to your right. No.
No, that's Liz. She was a former town attorney, and that's Lisa Davidoff. She's an environmental.
Yeah, I know who
analyst.
Lisa is.
Yeah.
But okay, I didn't know who Liz
And
was.
that's.
Okay.
Sorry, Melissa. Yeah. Okay. I think.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Guys.
Enjoy your weekend.
So, no further business. I make a motion that we close this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done. Thank you, LTV.
We'll just pull. Yeah. Thanks, LTV. We'll just, Oh,